Have you ever experienced burnout? You know, that feeling of when you try to do everything and you still feel exhausted? Well, you're definitely not alone. And today we're going to be talking about how to recover from burnout. Hey friends, and welcome back to another episode of Called and Unqualified, a Create Worship Inspired video series. If you don't know me already, my name is Brenna and I'm unqualified to be a mental health expert of any kind, but I have spent most of my young adult life overworking and as a result, recovering from burnout. Many of us, especially those of us learning and working from home, are experiencing some new feelings or some returning feelings of burnout. Some have described burnout as almost physical and emotional exhaustion, no matter how much you feel like you've gotten done. Zoom fatigue is a very real thing, and I think it's because we subconsciously know that we're not actually interacting with real people. It makes us feel more isolated and alone. So maybe no matter how much you get done, you feel like you're just exhausted and running on empty most of the time. And this is burnout. Maybe you feel less accomplished when you finish a project. And some of the other things are maybe you just don't feel like you have the energy to do things that are necessary. So dealing with burnout is actually incredibly subjective. It depends on a lot of different factors because everybody is a unique human. So these suggestions of mine are going to look different in everybody's life. So if one of these things doesn't work for you, it doesn't mean that you're broken, it just means that you're different from me, and that is perfectly fine. If you're anything like me, then validation is really helpful and encouraging. I first want to remind you something that I need reminding of myself. It is okay to feel exhausted, especially during everything going on right now. It is okay to have emotions. It's okay to not feel at your peak all of the time. Especially in Christian communities, I think that some of us feel this pressure that since we've been saved, we all have to feel okay, happy, and pretty encouraged most of the time. That if we're discouraged or feeling down, something's wrong. And if you're feeling like this is you too, I would really encourage you to go back and look in both the Old Testament and the New Testament and see how many tired, exhausted, depressed, and anxious people that God did amazing things through. Everybody has low points in their life, but that doesn't make God any less powerful, and it doesn't make you any less loved. So I will say it again and hope that it sinks in. It is okay to have emotion. And also please remember that we don't earn our worth through what we do. Yes, we want to express our love to God and others through service, but we have already been saved by grace, not our works. So number one, recovering from burnout, I would absolutely recommend taking some time to rest. Maybe this just means taking a break so you can feed a hobby or other relaxing activity that has nothing to do related to any of your work or jobs. This is just so you can take a small break without having to stop everything entirely. The amount of rest and the things that you do to rest are going to differ for each person, and that is okay. Some people are maybe going to need more time alone, and then other people are maybe going to need more time with life-giving people. One of the times that I was most burnt out was sophomore year in college. I was working full-time, I was a full-time student, and I was serving part-time in ministry, so I really hardly had any time to rest at all. So I'm a huge extrovert, and one of the things that's restful to me is spending time around life-giving people. I hate being alone. So what I did was I asked my employers, professors, and supervisors if I could get the same week off from all of my work so I could go home and spend some time relaxing with my family. And I'm going to be completely transparent with you, this rest for the first few days was incredibly uncomfortable. I'm a workaholic and I feel like I always have to be doing something, so I feel like I almost earn my keep on planet Earth. I don't really like just sitting and receiving love and service from people around me. But what this season of life taught me is if I wanted to continue serving and loving, I was going to need to periodically take some time for people to do that for me. That is not selfish, that's being a good steward of your energy resources. Something that took me forever to learn is you have to secure your own oxygen mask before you can help others. I know that sounds very countercultural for some of you that have grown up with a servant's heart, but I promise You have to secure your own mask if you want to help others put on their masks. This is why God blessed us with the Sabbath day. So it's not a commandment anymore that we take a whole 24 hours to just not do any work at all. But that means that God gifted us with a day where we can actually rest, because He acknowledged that we just can't keep going and going and going. We do have limited power. Resting is actually really healthy. It's not selfish, especially if you have a problem with overworking. This is actually being responsible. Secondly, this is a huge thing for those of you that are like me and love to be everybody's go-to person. Set boundaries and communicate. Set boundaries with your work, especially in the context of time. Set specific work hours for yourself so you have that healthy boundary of, yes, this is the time of day where I need to be done and rest. So if you have any apps on your phone that you use for work or school, so personally I will sign out of my school email on the weekends, or I have like my Slack app, I can set between 9 to 5 Monday through Friday, so on the weekends or outside of work hours, it won't notify me. So if you can do some of these things to help take away the temptation of working when you really shouldn't be, this is incredibly helpful when setting boundaries. Your rest time should be as uninterrupted as possible. So anything that you can do to help yourself not feed that temptation of working while you're supposed to be resting, do it. This is actually setting really healthy boundaries. And sometimes you actually need to do this with some people in your life too. My sophomore year of college, I actually had to set personal phone hours for some people that weren't family and really close life-giving friends. I have a lot of friends that need comfort and support, and I personally love doing this and serving this role. But the problem is I would start to have friends that would suddenly have emotional crises way too late into the evening, and then it would cut into things like my sleep schedule, and then I wasn't able to really do any of my other roles as effectively as I needed to. Someone was always being let down, and as a result, I had to set personal boundaries with people. And I will tell you something that may be hard to hear and accept, but these people will live and they will be fine if they don't hear from you until the next morning. So as a result, I set my personal phone hours from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. So that means the majority of people that are outside of my lifeline group, so my family, my friends, and other people really close to me, I won't answer them before 9 a.m. or after 9 p.m. The others only hear from me if it's an emergency. This idea may make you feel guilty, and if you do feel guilty, you're not alone. I felt really guilty about doing this at first, but remember, this is being a good steward of your time and energy. And boundaries go hand in hand with communication. So you need to be communicating with your family, your friends, your professors, your teachers, your mentors, your supervisors about any reasonable thing that they can be doing to help you out. Unfortunately, those of us that have trouble asking for help, like myself, need to understand that the people around us are not mind readers. So we actually do need to tell them the things that we need so they can help us and we can communicate with each other. And also, if you need help processing through some of these emotions or how to set boundaries, or really just understanding that you are valuable enough to have to set boundaries, please go see a counselor or a therapist. This doesn't mean you're broken, it just means that you're a regular human like the rest of us that needs a little bit of help kind of processing through things going on. And as a little asterisk for Christians, if you are a Christian and you really need some mental health support, please go see either a mentor that's really close to you or go see a Christian counselor. The mental health industry has kind of been warped, so unless you're really going and seeing a Christian counselor, you may be asked to do things that don't really align with your faith. Some of these things for me were being suggested to take heavy medication or doing things like spiritual meditation that wasn't focusing on Jesus or the scriptures. So to me, it just aligned more with my spiritual convictions with going and seeing a Christian counselor. And then the last suggestion that I have, especially if your burnout is really severe, is cut back to basics until you can just breathe. I personally was encouraged to do this first before anything else, and it didn't sit right with me. So if you are a person that really, really needs this, there is no shame in really setting some hard boundaries, taking some time away, and really just grounding yourself again. This can maybe look like just cutting back to one role in your life and trying to manage that well. So for example, if you're a student who's also working, maybe this looks like taking some time off from classes to just work if that's necessary, or kind of letting your work go so you can make sure that you're managing your class as well. And so those of you like myself that are hoping to go to grad school are probably freaking out and thinking, but I need this job to go on my resume. I need to stay class president of this group so I can get into a good grad school. And I know, because that's what I told myself too. But your health actually does come first. You can't help people as an empty shell of a human being. You actually do have to preserve some of the things and resources that you have in order to be effective in the future. Burnout can have some really long-lasting health effects, so please be careful. Grad schools also don't want empty shells of human beings. So if you get to grad school and you're literally just not able to do anything than breathe, then they're probably not going to be super happy. If you're barely breathing, but you got a full ride scholarship, what's the point? It's absolutely important to try to think about the future and maybe make some flexible plans long term. But we don't know what God has for us, but you also have to take your health into consideration. That's a part of your future too. You also really need to consider the situation that you're going to leave yourself in after your final graduation. And not just financially, but also health-wise. So maybe you do need to take a step back from the ministry that you've been doing on the side, or maybe just focus on classes, or maybe just focus on working, but this is only going to be temporary. In the long run, preserving your health is very important. You can't keep serving people if you run yourself into the ground. And if it's hard to hear and accept this, then we're probably pretty similar, because I absolutely understand how that feels. Burnout sucks, but if you do put in just as much effort into resting and recovering, you will bounce back. You're not alone, and everything eventually will feel okay again. You are valuable, you are loved, and you are cared for beyond measure. Okay guys, so that's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for watching. You can find all of these episodes and podcast episodes at createworshipinspire.com, along with a link to our Patreon page and our online merch store. Please be sure to comment down below your favorite way of resting and recovering, and please leave any suggestions that you have for future episodes. Also, please be sure to like this video, share with a friend, and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, if you want more CWI updates, please be sure to follow all of our social media pages linked in the description down below. See you next time!